This episode is brought to you by Starry. When you drink Starry Lemon Lime Soda, every sip is a win. Perfect for game time or anytime. It's a crisp, refreshing lemon lime soda that's caffeine-free and bursting with flavor that makes you go, ah. Starry hits different. Find it in stores or online today.
This episode is brought to you by L'Oreal Paris Everpure Hair Care and their Bond Repair System. If you style or color your hair, you know how damaging it can be. Why pay for overpriced bond repair products, you know the ones, when you can get the same results for a third of the price with Everpure Bond Repair? If you want smoother, stronger, softer hair, this is the dupe for you. Put this dupe to the test. Buy it now at l'orealparisusa.com/bond repair.
You bet your life I've made up my mind. But I'm telling you and I'm telling everybody at this table that that's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close. And you better do something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again.
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of two hosts of this rhythmic podcast.
And I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this rhythmic podcast. I don't think that means what you think it means.
I don't know what it means.
Think of me as Bruce the Shark to Dave's Sheriff Brody. I'm always breaking down and not doing my job properly and he's got a lovely tan.
Lovely. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests for their best ever sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we quite often drift off and talk about other things, sometimes movie related, sometimes just life in general.
We should also point out we do love spoilers. So once in a while, we talk about a film and we do spoil it. So if you haven't seen a film we mention, just go and cut the grass for a minute and then come back.
Yeah.
But on today's episode, we are joined by Sarah Buddery.
Sarah is a brilliant podcaster, and you will know her from her fantastic podcast, Let's Jaws for a Minute, where her and her co-host take 1 minute of Jaws at a time and talk about it for quite often an hour with guests.
Yeah, we're very excited to sit down with Sarah and chat all things sequels with her.
These are Sarah Buddery's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
Can you remember the first sequel you got excited about or a sequel that you were extremely excited to see?
Yeah, I don't know if this was necessarily the first sequel I was really excited about, but I was unreasonably excited for Finding Dory when that came out because I was such a big fan of Finding Nemo. I'm a big Disney fan, as people may know, but yeah, I loved that film so much that when I heard that, I just never thought they were going to do a sequel. And then when I heard they were doing a sequel, I was like, I will push all of the children out the way to be there on opening day. I'm so excited to see it. I mean, it turned out not to be that great
it's
or
sweet,
as good,
though,
but
right? Yeah,
it's sweet. And I was still excited. So I enjoyed seeing it, even though it wasn't as good, but yeah.
So it was Finding Nemo. Were you excited when that came out? Or did you know not much about it when it first dropped and then...
Yeah, I think I just, as a big fan of Disney, Pixar generally, I think that any of the new releases I, was excited about. But yeah, that was a particular favorite for a while. I think it's only recently that I redid my Pixar rankings and moved it down from first. So it was my favorite for a
What's
really
number
long
one?
time. I think it's probably Inside Out. I love
nice.
It's a good pick, yeah.
Yeah, it's that or the Toy Stories. The Toy Stories are like nostalgia, childhood, growing up with them, and then Inside Out, I'm just like, it's just such a good film.
Would you like to see a sequel to that one, or do you think that's so perfect they should just leave how it is?
I think it's perfect. I don't think they need to. They probably will because, cash grab, but I wouldn't want to see one. I don't think they need to do one necessarily.
How do you feel about the Pixar sequels? Because they're not all brilliant. Like Cars 2, we've spoken quite a lot about.
Oh,
That's pretty bad.
All of the Cars films are hot garbage.
Oh,
spicy hot takes already. Yeah, I mean, obviously the the Toy Stories, probably bar Toy Story 4, are all great.
Rubbish.
I don't know if it's rubbish. It's just not. It's just unnecessary. I think it ended so perfectly at 3 that it didn't need to go on. But I do really like Incredibles 2. I think that's really good. But that's the sort of film where it kind of lends itself to a sequel. I mean, you have so many different superhero films and stuff now that it's just like doing a kind of like a new adventure like with those characters seems to work. But I don't know. Sometimes they just push it that little bit too far. I feel that's what Toy Story 4 was. Like, even though it's like on paper a good film, it's, I mean, debatable, right? But yeah, it's just, it ended so like perfectly, Toy Story 3, where it's just like it had come full circle. They'd gone to a new kid, and it was like that, you know, you could see that cycle happening over and over again. I didn't need that little button they decided to put on the end of it, but you know.
I like the thought that they were all together, and then 4 came along and ripped them all apart.
Yeah,
my heart.
Just didn't need 4, did you really?
No.
It just wasn't. It was just what it was. It felt like it was there for the money rather than for, you know, the story.
Is that how you felt about Finding Dory, or was that the way you thought they would go with a sequel? Would they concentrate on Dory, or before you saw Dory, did you think Nemo 2 would be he gets lost again?
Well, they've already found him, so you can't can't lose him again, can they? But it's hard to say really, like, because it's not a bad film really. I just think it's not as good as Finding Nemo, but better that they went, I think, with a different character. And Dory was kind of like fan favorite character anyway from the original, so it made sense to focus on her. And I liked that it was sort of, as well as her getting like stuck in the aquarium or wherever she ends up, it's like she was on a journey like to find herself as well. So it's not just like finding someone who was lost, it's about her finding out who she was and her family and stuff like that. So I kind of would like to if it leaned like even more into that, to be honest, than you know, going down the same or similar route to the first. But yeah.
And where is it on your Pixar rankings, out of interest?
It's quite low down, but I mean, I think that just speaks to the quality of
what's
Pixar's
bottom
films.
That's what I'm trying to dig at.
Oh, probably it's one of the Cars or maybe The Good Dinosaur, because
The Good Dinosaur
film is trash. It's so bad.
I think I cried during The Good Dinosaur.
I cried because it was so bad.
I seem to cry at everything at the moment.
You're getting to the age, Dave. You're knocking on 40 now. You're just going to cry at everything.
Mate,
it's coming.
I honestly, I think it came a few years ago when I found myself crying to Sister Act 2. It's a true story. I was like, they've done so well to get to the finals.
I'm so proud.
Lauryn Hill.
I think the definitive answer of the worst Pixar movie is Cars 2, surely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
trash. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
Did you recommend people go and see Finding Dory, or were you just telling people to it's not as good, leave it there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a sequel that at least has a point, and a reason to exist. I think the worst, I don't know, a pattern with kind of like the worst sequels is when you can just see that they just absolutely do not have a reason to exist.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah. we sure will. But yeah. So I think in that sense, it's certainly not the worst. There are worse. If we're just thinking Pixar sequels, there are worse Pixar sequels than
especially when you've done. Have you done all the Disney films, all the sequels, like Brother Bear 2?
Oh no, I mean we got into them a little bit. So when I was doing the JumpCast series on the Disney classics, we only covered the sequels if they were in the kind of the Cinema. 59 or 60 canon or whatever it is. I think it's 61 now actually. So like obviously we've covered like Frozen 2 and where there kind of was a sequel that fit into that canon. But the like straight to videos, I mean, we mentioned them in passing, and I was made to watch The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2.
So were we at one point.
Yeah, so were we. Yeah.
I mean, my condolences, because it's so dreadful. It's so awful.
Yeah, that was someone's worst sequel.
Yes.
Oh,
Fair
God,
play.
it's bad.
Yeah. I think I made Martin watch it, and he was just like, "What have you done?" Like, because I didn't even make him watch the whole thing. I was like, "Please just watch 5 minutes of it, so you can just experience what I've had to go through, and I just need some support."
Yeah.
And like he watched the first 5 minutes and he was just like, this is awful, I hate it, please make it stop, because he loves the first film. So.
The weirdest thing about that sequel is that they got the voice cast to come back for it, which is rare for the Disney straight to DVD, VHS, whatever era you're at, sequels. I'm a big fan of Return of Jafar, which doesn't get the love it should do.
Yeah, Lion King 2 as well, surprisingly good. Yeah,
it has popped up as positive chat, Lion King 2.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I loved all your Disney stuff, so
thank you.
You know,
seems like a long time ago now.
Yeah, you're my Disney person and also my Jaws person, so
yay.
I was just wondering if potentially we're just gonna have fish-based movies in this podcast. So
I mean
we'll find out.
Very on brand for me.
What is your best sequel today?
Okay, a point of clarification. I don't think this is the best sequel ever made, but but it felt very on brand for me to just go like all Jaws. You asked me to come on, you give me free reign to pick films, and I personally think that Jaws 2 is not the best sequel ever made, but it is better than it has any right to be. And I quite often defend it. I have maybe we'll get onto this. I have a way it could be better for sure. And theories around how you could fix it as well. But I enjoy it quite a bit. I think because obviously having one of the main trio in Jaws 2 helps a great deal. Because we'll get onto some of the other sequels later, but the less resemblance they have to the original, the worse they get. So this at least does have my boy Roy Scheider in it. He doesn't really want to be there, but he got a lovely tan. So
I think I agree with you, actually. I had seen Jaws 2 before, but when I watched it again, I was like messaging Dave going, it's actually not bad. You know, it's all right. It's surprisingly good, in fact. Yeah.
People
Very
are surprised
passable
when I tell them, like, because my love for Jaws is so well known. So when I tell people, I'm like, oh yeah, Jaws 2 is actually pretty good. They're like, okay, let's see.
The problem with Jaws 2 is that it follows Jaws 1, which is like pinnacle cinemas. I mean, it's god tier. It's very few films can beat it. It's one of the best films ever made. Compare it to some other films, it's very good.
Yeah.
Jaws 2. We used to have a question on some of our questions. We asked what film doesn't really need a sequel, and my go-to answer was always Jaws. But I think I'm going to change that now because I really enjoyed Jaws 2.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I think the only thing that it was missing was that sprinkling of kind of Spielberg magic. You know, that's all it was really missing from taking it up a notch. Yeah, because I think it had everything you needed in it.
Still has John Williams' score. Yeah, that still glistens to it. Why do you like it, Sarah? Or why do you think we should like it?
I mean, expanding on it's better than it has any right to be, because I think that's not sort of really speaking to the quality of the film as a film. You know, you can't compare it to Jaws. I kind of just have to, like, even though it obviously is carrying on the story somewhat, I have to distance it because I think it's just like apples and oranges, isn't it? Like you can't compare the two.
Yeah.
But my favorite character in Jaws changes daily, but I really, really like Brody as a character. I like that he is this everyman character, and he goes on such a journey in the first film to being like petrified of water, not even wanting to like go up to his ankles when, you know, they're getting the kids out of the ocean and stuff. Like he is terrified of it. And he goes on this huge journey in the first film to then being the hero at the end. And it's so satisfying, you know, we all know it, the great moment at the end of Jaws when he shoots the shark and it blows up. So I think that if it wasn't Brody in this film, I really wouldn't like it as much, because I'm just happy to see that he's doing okay for the most part. That he goes through it a little bit in this film, but I like that he is taken what happened to him in the first film and is now sort of able to cope a bit better. It's, you know, I think it's as soon as when they find like the orca, as in the animal, not the boat, like washed up on the beach, and he's like, it's a shark, like straight away. He is not kind of messing about this time. He's not uncertain. He doesn't need the experts, like, you know, Matt Hooper can't come, he's unavailable, so it's all him this time. And it's like he's really strong in his beliefs, and it leads to him making some mistakes, like when he sees the shadows and thinks it's a shark and causes a bit of a scene. But I just like that it continues the development of him as a character and adds a bit more into it. And I also just love that Larry Vaughn, the mayor, has learned absolutely nothing. Oh, it's just because he has a moment in Jaws when he's like, my kids were on that beach, like my kids could have died. When you think like, something's getting through, like he's realizing like what a jerk he's been. And then you get to this and it's just like he has learned nothing.
I mean,
absolutely
that's
nothing.
Not like a politician, right?
Yeah, just making the same mistakes over and over again. I mean, can't relate. This is
no, never heard of any politician doing that.
Yeah. Why do you think no one believes him? Wouldn't they be the first person to be like, we should probably listen to the one guy that's knows about sharks? He's dealt with it first time, and you know we've had sharks in this area before now. We should probably listen to him. And they're like, no, it's not a shark.
Yeah, I mean, they don't expand on it that much, but there's that kind of that other guy who is sort of hanging around, and it looks like they're sort of trying to, I don't know if it's sell land or sell real estate or something like that. You know, that they're obviously trying to like show off Amity and impress and be like, you know, hey, it's a great place to work, live, invest, whatever. So I think it's just, I don't know. It's 4 years as well. I think it's set 4 years after the events of the first film. Maybe Larry's just got like a really short memory, and he's just, or he's so like caught up in kind of, you know, the business, and like he's moved on, and he's, you know, he didn't go through what Brody went through. No, really. I mean, he's left behind on Amity, and then even like Brody recounting that, like what exactly happened out on the Orca, like he doesn't, well, one, probably doesn't care. Two, he's never going to know like what it was actually like unless he was there. So for Larry, probably so much easier to move on. So I kind of like that about his character in this film, that it makes sense that he is so kind of like quick to just make the same mistakes again, because he didn't have the same experiences as Brody. Whereas Brody, it's really affected him in this. And my favorite thing about Jaws 2, or one of my favorite things about it, and I wish this was something that it leaned more into, is that it really addresses this idea of Brody having like severe PTSD from what happened to him. And also fair enough. Like I think anyone who went through that word, this, you know, I think it's quite early on in the film where he's unwilling to go out into the water. He overcomes that by the end, but he sends Hendrix out in the boat to go and look, and he's not wanting to get close to the water again. So he's obviously like regressing back a little bit into that scared state that he was in before. But also what's super interesting, and this is the thing that I wish they had like just made so much more of a big deal about. It's quite obvious at points that Brody is starting to drink more heavily. Yeah. There's a bit when Ellen, I think, opens like the door of the truck and a load of cans fall out. And I'm like, Brody is possibly like potentially on the same path as Quint, because Quint went through a very traumatic event on the Indianapolis, and obviously that all gets recounted in the first Jaws film. Has an alcohol problem, very, very obvious in the first film that he drinks heavily, and that's his kind of coping mechanism. And it's so subtly woven through Jaws 2 that I think that, I mean, my brain now is just trained to spot like every tiny little minuscule detail. So it was only this time rewatching it where I was like, beer cans, and just like went nuts writing it down in my notes, because I was like, I think they're trying to suggest that Brody is possibly going to go down the same track as Quint. And that's such an interesting idea to me. I really wish there had been a bit more of that. But yeah, a slightly troubled making of behind the scenes Jaws 2 is that like a lot of these people were contractually obliged to be there. So in terms of like making more, of this character, like having more like Brody stuff, character development. It doesn't give as much of that as I would like.
Yeah. What about the relationship with the kids? I think that's a really interesting relationship between Brody and Michael, isn't it? Who just doesn't want to listen to his father, at all. He just wants to go out on the scene. Well, he's young, I guess, and drink and be on a boat and be with girls. And you think, again, listen to your dad. Yeah. Just listen to your dad. And also, can you keep tabs where the little brother is? No one seems to care.
Yeah.
Poor Sean. Yeah.
Poor Sean.
He gets the bad end, doesn't he? Yeah. It's interesting because obviously, like, there's hints of that in Jaws where Brody sort of talks to Michael and is like, don't go out on the water. And it's, he gets bought like a boat for his birthday. So it's clear that like being on the water is like an interest that Michael has, but it goes against what Brody wants, Brody having this fear of the water. And then obviously now having gone through this, Brody has gone back to being like very wary of the water, and for good reason. But that's an interesting thing about just generally the vibe and the feeling of Amity. And I think this is reflected in Michael. He's like, he always wants to be out in the water, doesn't he? He's like, you can't keep, get him out of that boat. And it's like the Amity is not just like recovered, it's almost like completely relaxed. Like there's so many like water sports and boats, and like the kids are always like out on the water, like that's what they do. And it's interesting, I guess, that that what happened, even though like so much of the first half of Jaws is focused on Amity and what's happening there, they're so quick to forget that and move on, because again, not gone through the sort of the same experiences that we went through that thing with Brody, because we leave Amity behind halfway through the film and then we're just out on the boat. So interesting to see like how they have moved on. And you see this move into the sequels a little bit as well. I'll save thoughts, but Michael going into sort of like working in an area that is sort of like related to the ocean, and Sean is like, I don't go in the water. So there's like it's an interesting dynamic, I think, and an interesting relationship that Brody has with his sons, that clearly like the younger one has almost like inherited some of Brody's fears about going into the water, but Michael being older, or maybe just sort of being more like his mum than his dad or something like that, is just not as petrified of the ocean.
Yeah. So when was the first time you watched Jaws? Do you remember that?
First time I watched Jaws was when it came out on Blu-ray for the first time.
Not even that long ago.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, so not even that long ago. So my Jaws fandom has really like blown up in quite a short space of time. But yeah, I often say like my gateway drug to Jaws was Deep Blue Sea, which
incredible.
I love. It's such a good film. But when I saw that, I was like, that was a fun shark movie. I want to watch some more fun shark movies. And everyone being like, the shark movie is Jaws. You have to watch Jaws before you watch anything else. I'm like, yeah.
So how did you find out about Jaws 2? Did you know about it, or did you watch Jaws and then someone goes, there's a sequel?
I think it's just, I mean, when I like really, really love something, I tend to go like all in on it. So when a couple of times like watching Jaws, I was like, I think I love this film. I think this might be my favorite film ever made. So then I was like, naturally, like, what more Jaws stuff can I consume? And that's when I found the sequels. And it starts pretty strong, and then it just sinks to the bottom of the proverbial ocean the further along we get. But yeah, I think it was just curiosity and just love of Jaws that sent me to the sequels.
I think I actually watched Jaws 2 first, because I was about 8 years old and I was at a friend's birthday party. It was like a sleepover, and one of the videos we watched was Jaws 2. So I saw this before I'd seen Jaws. I don't think I saw Jaws until I was like in my teens.
Interesting.
So yeah, I did it completely the wrong way around.
Yeah. Do you think this is as scary as the first Jaws? Do they use the music as well, or the effects? Do you think the shark looks better? Did they iron that out?
No, the shark looks worse.
The shark looks worse.
Yeah, it really does. Like when it gets all like burnt up and stuff as well. They give it a bit of a like, oh, let's give this shark a bit of an edge, make him a bit more of a badass, like give him a little burn scar and stuff. It doesn't look that good. I also think there's a little too much shark because there's hardly any shark in Jaws. It's really used kind of sparingly, but I have a full like PowerPoint presentation prepared for whenever someone is like the shark looks bad in Jaws. But now when someone is like the shark looks bad in Jaws, I'll be like, may I present Jaws 2? Because like it's made later, like surely, technology, things would improve, like whatever. Obviously the budget is like considerably less and the films get, have less and less budget as they go along. I think there's times when it looks okay, but I think in like particularly in like the close-up moments, it's really
there's more noticeable stock footage use in Jaws 2, I think, as well, of like just a general shark that doesn't look like a giant great white. That's sort of a clear indication of lack of budget, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right.
It made serious money, though, didn't it?
Did it?
It was like the biggest sequel ever for a while, and then Rocky 2 came along and beat it. But for a while, it was a huge success. And especially, like you were saying, the stories behind the making of it. I mean, I was reading about that today. There's fistfights between the director and Roy Schneider.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Neither of them liked each other. Schneider only did this because he walked off the set of Deer Hunter or something. And he still had a 2-picture deal, and they made him do this.
Yeah. So we had this 2-picture deal with Universal, and because he had turned down, Deer Hunter, I think it was. He was like basically forced into doing this. Didn't want to be there. Didn't like the story. Didn't even think that a sequel needed to happen. But was I'm here now. I might as well make the best of it, I guess. But
he's great in it.
He's so good in it.
So good in it.
He's great in everything I've ever seen him in. But like my favorite nugget of information I know about Jaws 2 is that Roy Scheider got so tanned that they had to like color correct him in certain scenes because he was just like, I don't want to be here. Like, I'm hating every minute of this. This sequel doesn't need to exist. I'm contractually obliged to be here. I'm going to work on my tan. Just like foil or something, just lying there. So they, in certain scenes, they had to like alter the color of him because he was too tanned.
Amazing.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I know, right?
Yeah. Do you have a favourite scene? If someone said, what's your favourite part of Jaws 2, what would you come up with?
There's a couple of bits. I really like the, I can't remember the girl's name. Terry, I think, as a girl. It's like water skiing. And the shark is like chasing after her, but they make it into like a chase sequence.
Tina.
And it's...
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think that bit is so badass. I just think it looks really, really cool. Like you don't really have anything like that in the first one. Like you have the shark like pursuing the boat, but again, you don't see the shark that much. And here you've got this like fin just like cutting through the water and like chasing after this girl, the one that's on like the water skis.
Yeah.
I just think that bit is really, really cool. And I think there's a really decent jump scare as well when Brody like wades out into the sea because he's found that like bit of wood or something. They're very clearly trying to go for like Ben Gardner head in the boat vibes from Jaws. So you kind of know there's going to be something like unexpected there, but it's still like I haven't watched this film as much as I've watched the first one, obviously. But when I watched it in preparation for this, I was like, well, like it still works as a jump scare. So I think that bit is really effective. And I mean, the end is ludicrous. Like the way that the shark is dispatched at the end.
Yeah.
Even like, okay, this is the only bit where I was like, oh, Roy, my sweet baby angel. When I can't even remember what the line is where he's just like, open up and say or something. Like it's clear he's trying to do the like smile you son of a bitch or like
but not as good as it.
You can see he like read that in the script and just like fucking hell, like just like rolling his eyes, like, oh no. So you can see it in his face as he's saying it. He's just like, I am contractually obliged to say these words. Oh, it is bad. And like, I forgot how funny it is when the shark gets electrocuted as well.
It just stays there for a while and hovers.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it's hilarious.
Ludicrous.
Yeah. Would that work, Hannah?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, surely.
I don't think so. Don't you have to be grounded to... I don't know. I don't think it'd work. And if it did work, surely it'd electrocute everyone who's touching the water.
No, because he was in a rubber dinghy.
Mm-hmm.
What about all the kids, though?
They're all on like little things, weren't they? Or were they in the water?
They were on the. Oh, I don't know. The big question is, Sarah, after you finish doing your Let's Jaws for a minute about Jaws, are we moving on to the sequels?
We will not be doing them minute by minute, but we will be covering the sequels because my co-host had not watched them at all until very, very recently. So he's lived his whole life blissfully unaware or just pretending these sequels don't exist before I come along and make him suffer.
Amazing.
But he's not watched Jaws the Revenge yet, but at time of recording, his favorite sequel is Jaws 3. So I don't know what to tell you.
Oh no.
Taking a tour of where your finances can go? Good plan. See how Northwestern Mutual's approach to financial planning is designed for your goals with our interactive tour. Try it today at northwesternmutual.com/tour. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
It's our duty to support veterans as they transition to their next mission, like Ben, who found his new career at Boeing through the SkillBridge program.
We lead and work with some of the most highly motivated and talented people in the country. The SkillBridge kind of helps you translate all that experience.
And Kareen, who found her next purpose with The Mission Continues.
Once you get out of the military, you don't lose that sense to want to give and to want to make a difference.
Learn more about the programs for veterans and their families at boeing.com/veterans.
This episode is brought to you by Tinder. Cuffing season is in full effect, which makes Tinder the place to be right now. There's a new wave of folks coming back to the app ready to find love, fun, or just a new friend. And if you're worried about never meeting up with your matches IRL, don't be. 1.5 million Tinder users go on dates in person every week. Explore all of the possibilities for yourself. Tinder. It starts with a swipe. Download Tinder today.
What is not your worst sequel, but what is the most disappointing sequel you think you've seen?
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm now just looking.
I love the people who
at my
yeah.
DVD
this is what people do. They're like
one
the
of
Matrixes.
these must have disappointed me. Yeah, I ignored all of the Matrix sequels. I've only seen the first one, and I'm happy to report that it's a fantastic standalone film. That's
the best way to be.
Has no sequels. I can't think of. Nothing is leaping out at me at one that's disappointed, apart from one's already mentioned.
Any superhero films, action films, the Predators, the Aliens.
I mean, there's a lot of disappointing sequels. Where do we start?
Yeah. Marvel films.
How much controversy I want to cause on the podcast, but
go for it. We love controversy.
It won't be the hottest take we've had on this. I promise you.
And it's all right. It doesn't have to be like a second one, right? It could be
it can be any.
Perfect. I think
Police Academy 7. I know.
Got it in one. I think The Rise of Skywalker is fucking trash.
Yes. Hugely disappointing.
Right answer.
That was okay. That's a perfect answer for most disappointing, because Force Awakens loved, Last Jedi loved, really liked the direction it was going in. I know that again, that's a controversial opinion in some corners of the internet, but it's just Rise of Skywalker was just like, let's just take every single thing that The Last Jedi did and let's ignore it entirely and just do our own thing. The most frustrating thing about it, and there's many frustrating things about it, but is how many fake deaths there are. To the point where, like, when they just kept happening, like the further it got into the film, I was just like, I don't care. And I've never been sat in a Star Wars film, but I even loved I loved 1, 2, and 3 when they came out because I was a child. So I was like, yes, Jar Jar Binks, you better work. But now, like,
I watched 1 and 2 with my son today, and he loved both of them.
Do you know what?
That's.
They're bad, but they're at least like fun and silly occasionally.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
this, I was just like, I think I audibly, when it was revealed that, spoiler for a film that came out literally years ago, but then it was revealed that
people have picked it.
it was revealed that Rey was a Palpatine. I think I audibly in the cinema was like, I just yelled "fuck off," and there were children around. Like,
I did exactly the same.
Families, livid. I was absolutely livid, and like, it's just such a lazy way out. I get a bit like hot and sweaty whenever I think about this film because it's just like it just makes me feel riled up.
I held my fuck off until right at the end where she just said Skywalker, and then I was like, fuck off. and now I'm leaving.
I still don't believe it's real. I still believe there's a third Star Wars film coming. I think this one's still a bad dream.
There's still a 10. There's part 10 coming, and it's going to right all the wrongs.
I know. I don't even think 9 exists. I still think it's a big makeup. You're all had some wild dreams.
Just like a shared hallucination that we all had.
Oh man, that was Oh well. That was a good answer. You pulled out.
That's a really good answer. That's a great answer.
I fear that other people may have said it before, but
some people have picked it as worse. Reese, one of our friends, Reese, he picked it, and his rant is one of the favourite things. I just sat and listened for 20 minutes.
I gotta go listen to that.
It's fantastic. What is your worst ever sequel?
Oh, I mean, Jaws
is it your
3?
worst ever sequel?
It's certainly one of them. Jaws 3. What an absolute 3G. What an absolute mess this film is. And the thing is, most people will say that they get like worse and worse as they go along, and Jaws the Revenge is the worst one. I will occasionally defend Jaws the Revenge because I think it's so dumb. It has Michael Caine in it. Like Lorraine Gary is in it, reprising her role as Ellen Brody. So I've got something from the original film in there. Whereas like this, as much as I enjoy seeing a coked up Dennis Quaid just fighting a shark in an aquarium, it's not a good film.
That's my favourite bit of trivia from this one. I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, there's something that he said where he was like, "I was in Jaws, what?" Like when he was asked about it later, he just no recollection.
Oh God.
There are some very, very, very funny things in it. I don't think any of them were meant to be funny, but it's
the 3D stuff. That's the funniest bit, like the arms floating.
Mm-hmm. The fish at the beginning, just like spinning around.
The ending.
Yeah, the ending is exquisite. I mean, I've watched a lot of really, really rubbish shark films. I did it all in a day once in the name of charity. And this is, I mean, that's a lot of those ones that I've watched before, like they're so low budget that you're just like, all right, okay. But this, you're like, there's some names in here I recognize. There's, it's clear that they were at least trying. And like, how is it still so bad? I have more fun with like, I don't know, like the Sharknado films and your Mega Shark versus whatever films, because they are stupid and they know they're stupid. But I don't know if this film knows it's stupid, and it just is. Yeah, it's It's a lot. I'm so excited to talk about it. I've not. This is my first like talking about Jaws 3 on a podcast ever.
It's us as well. We're very excited.
It's about to happen a couple more times in the next few months. But like, look, I'm so pumped to talk about it.
But the plot is half decent, right? I watched a lot of Jaws today, and out of all the plots, that's the one I was like, oh, that could work. A shark gets into a sea life sensor. I can buy that, and it runs. I mean, you've got the shark contained.
But it's not just one, is it? Somehow two sharks get in.
Ooh.
Sorry to spoil that for anyone who's not seen Jaws 3. Two
Plot
sharks
twist.
get in.
A mama and a brother.
I think one gets in, but then she gives birth while she's like just hanging around in the aquarium. That's why they think it's only one. And I have to admit, for all its faults, that bit when they're like, there's a second shark. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, no way, there's a second shark. But like, I don't know, you watch it now and you're just like, there's
a second shark?
Yeah. Ooh, I thought I'd got rid of it.
Yeah.
I thought
this film was ending.
Yeah. Another 20 minutes left, yeah. Yeah. The concept, at least, I think is interesting. I think you're right. Like this idea of like a shark somehow like getting into an aquarium. It's different. If this didn't have any kind of connection to Jaws or something, this was just a big, stupid, dumb film about a shark that somehow got into an aquarium and then was just like wreaking havoc, I think I could have a good time with it. But I think it's a combination of the effects being so terrible, not caring about not one of these people, like not even the Brody children, because they're all kind of jerks in this film.
Well, one just disappears halfway through. Let's not forget that. He gets in the ambulance and we never see him again.
Just clears off. Those British guys, I don't even know who they are, but the ones who are like, all right, governor. Like,
one of them's Harry the Hatchet from
Lock,
Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
It sure is. Yeah.
I was watching it going, I know that face.
I was just waiting for like some kind of cutting Cockney line to come out of him, and it never did. I was waiting. It was nice to see him pop up, and it was nice to see Marty McFly's mum popping up as well.
Yeah,
as a water skier. Yeah,
first film role. That was her.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh man, I had a big crush on Leah Thompson back in the day, or still,
such a babe.
Yeah, there's all the right moves. What do you think of what they did to the Brody children as a Jaws 1 and 2 fan? I'm adding 2 in there. What do you think they did? Like, do you think it's right what they did with the children?
There's elements of it I like. Like I mentioned earlier, I like that it's sort of, one of them has gone down the route of, I'm interested by the sea and I want to work, he's working at a SeaWorld, so he clearly
he's like a janitor though, right? He's not like a...
Yeah, he runs it. He designed it.
No. Did he design it?
Literally watched it today.
I think he's like the head of the maintenance team.
Yeah, but no, that's why he's fixing the leak, because he designed the... Oh, I don't know.
Don't know. I thought it was like the head janitor, basically.
I thought he was quite high up, but you're making him sound like he's not.
It's just a cleaner, yeah.
Not a cleaner, like the head cleaner.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Give him a promotion.
Yeah.
If they, I don't know, they could have gone even further with that idea, because they could have had one of them wanting to go down the line of like, I'm interested in sharks, I'm fascinated by them, I want to, explore them, like going down a kind of like, Matt Hooper sort of route with, wanting to study, not just sharks, but sea creatures, whatever, and sort of, having this interest in them. And then the other kind of being like, I am petrified of water, like I won't go anywhere near the water. I like that, and I wish they'd done a bit more with that, because they really do just forget about Sean like halfway through the film. Like he's stuck out on a thing with Leah Thompson for a bit, and then he's just kind of neglected for the rest of the film. But they don't do anything like character development wise, like even like Mike Brody's girlfriend or whatever. It's like they don't do enough with these characters. I like when she calls the shark a big bitch, but other than that, I don't know the rest of it.
I think it's also it's missing Amity as well, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I was missing from it, is it doesn't have that kind of familiarity, because it's not in Amity, it doesn't have the same links, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like you say, it could be any other shark movie, just don't call it Jaws, you know. It could just be anything else.
Yeah.
And SeaWorld, and it's killing its creatures, like when it gets the shark straight in, it dies straight away on show.
Monsters. The product placement for SeaWorld, I'm like, this is a bit icky.
Yeah.
A bit icky now, isn't it?
Yeah, don't love that. But even then, just like, why did it have to be SeaWorld? I mean, I'm guessing they had they struck a deal or something, but like,
they paid a lot of money for it. They probably put the budget up.
So it'd be like Ocean World, or I don't know, just have it be like a fake thing. And why is it not in or near Amity? Like, it's the where even is it? I don't know. It's just somewhere.
It's like Florida or something.
I guess.
Yeah, I think it said Florida, didn't they?
But it's just, I don't know. It's because even in Jaws 2, you have some of like the same like background characters like cropping up and stuff, like some of the townspeople and so they that's why I'm always like, Jaws 4 is better than Jaws 3, because they at least like bring back some of that feeling of familiarity, whereas in this, like, it's a Jaws film in name only.
They don't give a shit about this film. They were here for money.
No.
There's a bit in the submarine bit with the blue screen, and half the submarine disappears into the blue screen. It's
beautiful. The little yellow submarine.
And I have to talk about Sean Brody. In Jaws 2, wasn't he like 10? And then he's now at least a man.
Yeah, I think he's 18 in this, isn't he? He's going off to college or something.
Yeah.
He's a man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a man. Compared to, he was 10 in the last one. It's only been, 3-4 years since the...
Yeah, the timeline doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No.
Does this exist in the timeline like Jaws World, or is it now like an ignored sequel? Do you know what I mean?
Kind of ignore it, doesn't it? It feels like 4 ignores it.
Yeah, 4 kind of sets it back a little bit to sort of go, okay. I don't think it makes any reference to 3 at all. So, and it does go back and has references to Brody. Obviously, Ellen is a big part of Jaws 4 as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that it certainly exists, but it's, I don't know whether people like to think of it as being as part of the Jaws story. I think you could just completely ignore any connection with Jaws, because there's moments when one of the Brody children like mentions their father, but he's never mentioned by name or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was sort of like, passing references like, because of, what happened when I was younger and that sort of thing. And it's like, that stuff is interesting. Like, these kids also experience like some trauma. So like maybe explore that idea a little bit and actually give us some character development. They're so one-dimensional, the characters in this. And they went through something as well. They, went through like however many like days, weeks, whatever it was that their dad was out at sea, not even being aware if he was ever going to come back or not. And then they have to deal with, him coming back and being obviously traumatized by what he went through. And they were there on the beach as well when all the things were happening. And it's like, Michael had like a really near miss in the first film, a couple, when he's sort of in the sea at the same time as, when Alex Kintner is killed and when the guy in the boat is killed as well. So like, to not even reference any of that stuff, it's clear that this film just doesn't really care about the legacy of Jaws. And that's why I like Jaws 2 and to a lesser extent Jaws 4, because they at least, I think, care about and acknowledge the legacy of Jaws. Whereas
they do. No. There's a little throwaway line in Jaws 4 where Sean says, "You got a new hat, Harry." And that for me, that just shows that they care, because the best line in Jaws is, "That's some bad hat, Harry." Like, I love that. And so for him to go, "Oh, you got a new hat, Harry." Like, that's why Jaws 4 is better than 3.
Just that line.
That line. Just that one line.
But Jaws 4 is not in 3D. Have you been able to see this in 3D? Anyone seen this in 3D? I would love to see it in 3D.
So here's the thing. I've been reliably informed. I don't know how you guys watched it. I watched it on DVD because I refused to spend the money to buy it on Blu-ray, even though I probably should. I've been reliably informed that the transfer on Blu-ray is much, much better than the one on DVD.
Oh, what's good
because I watched obviously just the DVD of it today, and there were moments that are just like so out of focus, so just like, it is like when you take your 3D glasses off in the cinema and suddenly you're like, whoa, like, have I just lost my vision or something? Like, there are moments like that in the film, and they were pushed to include more and more 3D. So like, rather than it just like giving depth, which is where you get that rubbish kind of blurry thing when you're looking at just normal scenes, they pushed for more of those things when there's like, you know, the arm like coming out at you, and the fish head, which looks awful, and the bit at the end when the shark bursts through the glass, and when it blows up and there's like entrails flying in your face and stuff. Like, they pushed for more of that stuff because they were like, oh, let's give the people what they want. Like, they want, you know, the theme park ride, basically. They want things flying in their faces. But I've got thoughts about 3D generally. I just don't like it, and I don't think it's in any way ever
always comes back though. Always comes back.
Yeah, ever enhances my viewing experience of a film. And I think this is the technology, and it's very kind of like earlier years when they were trying to figure out what worked, and it doesn't. I would be interested to see it in 3D. Like, if I saw a theater was showing it
with
in
proper
3D.
Old 3D glasses, like the blue and red ones.
Yeah.
I'd have no interest watching it new.
No, I would be interested to see. I don't think it would look better. I think.
No.
Can't polish a turd. Like, it's, you know, it's the bare bones of the film are still rubbish. So
me and Rich watched this on Amazon Prime Video, but the transfer is not good. As in, like you said, you could see the blue and the red lines. And
I think it's the DVD transfer, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're saying the Blu-ray one's better, this can't have been.
Yeah. I should invest in the Blu-ray at some point. I think
No.
they must do a box set of all four of them.
I think they do. No, they don't do a box set with all of them. They do a box set with 2, 3, and 4. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, because I've got enough copies of Jaws on Blu-ray. I don't need another one.
We have to talk about the end of this film. We have to talk about the sped up sharks. I have to mention the Jaws 3D logo at the beginning, what makes it look like it's a Superman film for some reason. And we have to talk about the end when they all slow-mo at the end, and the shark moves very slowly towards the screen with a man inside. And someone's going to have to explain how it ended as well. So who wants to take all of those questions?
Wow. I mean, so it's just, I was watching it today and I was just laughing the whole way through, and it's not meant to be funny. I think it's meant to be scary, and it's just not. It's so funny. That ending is exquisite. I love it so much. I mean, it's awful. It looks terrible. Like the bit when it's like, so the people are like trapped underwater, aren't they? And then the shark is like swimming towards the camera. I think this still does the rounds quite a bit when people are like, you can never trash the shark in Jaws 1 when this is what the shark looks like in Jaws 3. It's like, yeah, absolutely. And it like the way it like shatters like through the glass as well. But that glass, I mean, it's not glass. There's nothing there. It's just really, really terrible effect.
You're being kind.
And then, oh my gosh, I've forgotten. Like one of the British guys gets like swallowed by the shark, doesn't he?
The camera within the mouth is extraordinary.
Do you know what? I quite like that shot. It's quite good.
Yeah.
Because I like that he is like furiously like trying to swim out as well, and the shark is just like nom nom, like just chewing him down.
Like
it's
a
really
corn
funny.
on the cob.
Yeah, like a corn on the cob. But he has like, I don't know, some kind of explosive device or something.
They mention grenades quite early on, and then
like
they don't really mention them again.
Yeah, but they mention them, so that's important, because it's like, this is going to remember this is going to come back
the
later.
Electric cable in Jaws 2. Like,
So one of the flipping governor British guys gets swallowed by the shark, and he's got this grenade in his hand, and then like, so after the shark has like burst through the glass, it's in like the control room or something, and then they're trying to get the shark to open its mouth so they can like with a hook or something like pull.
They're trying to tickle it pretty much.
Yeah, like pull the pin on the grenade so that when the shark like closes its mouth, it then blows up. That explosion is one of the funniest explosions I've ever seen. It's a shark wouldn't explode. I don't know how a shark would explode. Never done it. No personal experience on this, but I don't think it would explode like that. I really don't. Those entrails as well, like they're just like, I don't know, like a brown slug octopus tentacle just like flying at the screen or something. It's so stupid.
Oh yes.
And
it's
then,
almost like a parody. It's almost like a Team America explosion.
Yeah. And then right at the end they free some dolphins, I guess, or they.
No, they were happy the dolphins didn't get eaten, but yes. They do a freeze frame.
The dolphins
they jump out,
don't they?
And then they just stop at the side.
I love how they get saved by dolphins.
Mm-hmm. They're very smart.
Christ.
I do have something positive about this film, and I think you guys are going to disagree to me because, you know, I watched 3 films back to back today, but I felt this was more like a slasher film than a Jaws film. Do you know what I'm saying about that?
Yeah.
It had a tone more of like a bad Friday the 13th. Okay, I'm not classing the fire, and this is not Jaws, but
yeah, it does seem that
it's definitely not the Jaws. Jaws 1 and Jaws 2 have a tone to them.
Mm-hmm.
This one goes somewhere else.
Yeah. It does seem that, like, I mean, maybe the shark is just annoyed because it's trapped in an aquarium and it doesn't want to be there, but like it does seem like the shark is kind of like picking off people like one by one, or like targeting people, and you get that a little bit in Jaws, but there's those like really like elaborate sequences with like the, you know, the water skiers all like piled up on each other
cool.
as
well.
and
it's
like I think a lot of that stuff is quite cool, and it's like you can see in those bits that a kill is about to happen, and I think that's where you're getting like the sort of slasher film vibes.
It's very obvious. Yeah,
you can see it, like, you know, Friday the 13th, Halloween, whatever, like you can see a kill coming like a mile off, because you just get that feeling. The setup, like the more elaborate a setup is as well, often in these films. I mean, the thing like the Final Destination films and everything, where they're nothing but elaborate setups.
Yeah.
Like the more there is, the more people there. Like that water skiing bit, there's like the crowds, there's people. You know, it's all kind of happening because it's the big like celebration opening or whatever. You know, something is going to happen, so you're kind of expecting it. Whereas
I like how your brain went Final Destination and mine went the first 10 minutes of Casualty.
But do you know what? That's a really good point, though. Some guy's climbing up a ladder. This isn't it's not gonna end well for him, is it?
So what were your thoughts? You watched Jaws 1, you watched Jaws 2, you opened the case for Jaws 3. What did you think going in?
I mean, I can't remember the exact first time I watched Jaws 3, but I had been lured into a false sense of security by Jaws 2 because I was like, not the first one, but pretty good. I had a good time with it. There's a lot about it that I like and appreciate and enjoy. And this, I watched it and I was like, that's a film I've seen with my eyes and I don't know what to do with it. It's just, yeah. I think the very first time I saw it, I was just like, I wish this wasn't a Jaws film. I just wish it was just like a crappy shark film.
Yeah.
I don't know if necessarily like the name makes a difference, but I think in this case it does because it's Jaws. Like it's not, you know, the third Sharknado film or the fourth Sharknado film, because like who cares? It's like this is Jaws. They've set this path or whatever, and Jaws 2 does a good job of like continuing the story. But I just, as much as I do enjoy Jaws 4 and have a good time with it, I just wish it had ended at 2, or that they had done a better job of Jaws 3 and just, you know, actually added something that connected it to the other ones. Like it'd be great if Ellen Brody just showed up, or you know, just anything,
even a phone call or something.
Anything, to connect it to, to 1 and 2 and 4 as well. It's just, I remember being very, very disappointed. I want to talk about disappointing sequels when I first saw it, and it made me not want to see 4. So I didn't watch 4 for a really, really long time because I was kind of going through them all, and Jaws 2 came. It was still a little while after I'd seen Jaws that I then went to Jaws 2. But then pretty soon after watching Jaws 2, I watched Jaws 3, and then that was it. I left Jaws 4 for ages because I was just like, no, it's ruined. I don't need to see it anymore.
You've probably heard the rumours about Jaws 4.
Its reputation sort of preceded it with Jaws 4, with people saying that was the worst. And I was like, but I've just seen the worst one, so...
I don't think Jaws 4 is the worst. I think 3 is the worst.
100% agree.
Whatever you're into, it's on Prime. Maybe you love pop music. With Prime, you can watch documentaries about your favorite bands, stream all their albums on Amazon Music, and even order some merch in time for their next concert, all in one place. From shopping to streaming, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
The spacious new Volkswagen Atlas. It does life beautifully.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader. Like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Have you watched a sequel that you think is better than the original?
Ooh.
I can throw some examples. Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious. Again, the slasher films. Any of them. Swords. Marvel films will take. Justice League.
Ooh.
No one said that.
Where did that come from? No one said it because it's not true.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to go for a very wholesome answer and say Paddington 2 is even more delightful than the first one.
Finally, someone's picked it.
Rich.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
I love Paddington 2.
I love
absolutely
them both.
Love it. Yeah, I love them both too.
You think how can you top Paddington, which is so lovely, and it's like a big cuddle of a film, and then they come along and they drop Hugh Grant as a bad guy, which is I didn't think I needed in my world, and then they had that ending when there's a knock on the door, and I lost my shit and cried.
I cried too. I can't. I always cry watching that scene. It's so lovely, and every time I'm like, I won't cry this time. I've seen it lots of times, and then it happens, and I'm like.
Me and my wife talked about it not too long ago, and we started to cry just talking about it. It's ridiculous how powerful that is.
Yeah.
Brilliant film. Brendan Gleeson, Tom Davis, all those people in there.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It's so good. I can't wait for the third one. Obviously my expectations for that are now like sky high, so I'm just hoping that it's. Yeah, it can't be bad. Surely, that bear could do whatever he wants for an hour and a half.
Could be disappointing though.
No, I refuse to believe it.
Rich, why do you like Paddington 2 so much?
Oh, it's a warm hug. I just, there are not many kids' films. There are not many films that you can watch with your kids where you can come away and go, I really enjoyed that. I really liked it. And they're few and far between. And when you get it right, it's just perfect. You know, Paddington in jail and everyone all the prisoners in pink jumpsuits because he's like put a sock in with them and stuff. It's just perfect. It's just perfect. My little boy loves it just as much as I do. You know, it's just a great family watch. And you're right, Hugh Grant's perfect in it as well.
Yeah. Christmas film? Would you class it as a Christmas film? Paddington 1 or 2? For some reason in my head it's kind of that. I know it's not based in Christmas, but it's
always on at
a
Christmas,
good film to watch at Christmas. You know, family fun kind of thing.
Yeah, you can watch it all year round. Why save it for Christmas? Just watch it on a Tuesday.
Right, strap in. Dream sequel. What is your dream sequel?
Guess what? It's Jaws related. Okay, so I have always thought that there doesn't need to be any more Jaws, or at least like continuation of the story. And obviously the further and further away we get from it, the harder it would be to go back to it, because majority of the cast not around anymore. And I don't, as much as I love Richard Dreyfuss, I don't need to see like old Matt Hooper, you know, still kicking about with sharks. I don't need it. So I don't want anything to come afterwards. So my dream sequel is actually a prequel, in which case you would be able to recast, even though I've not worked that out in my head yet, who I would like to cast in this. But I would like it to be a prequel focusing on Quint, because I think that there is so much in his story that is so interesting that the films kind of scratch the surface on, really. And obviously he's only in the first Jaws because, you know, he gets killed. So that's the only bit of Quint that we have. And to begin with, he's this, you know, quite enigmatic character. We don't know too much about him. And then the walls come down when he shares about his past and what happens to him on the Indianapolis. So I would really like to see like Quint in sort of like younger years, like joining the Navy, and then like the Indianapolis thing happening. I just think it would be, because it's not, what I don't like about a sequel is when it fills in a gap in the story that we don't need. So just to bring up some Disney examples, didn't need Maleficent, didn't need Cruella, don't need a gritty origin story for every single one of these villains. They can just be psychopaths and I don't need to know anything else about them. Leave it at that. But this, it's not giving us anything that we don't already know. It would just be that sort of like younger Quint, like on the Indianapolis, like what happened there. Like, I mean, that whole sequence would lend itself to such an exciting and tense action sequence with these people getting picked off like one by one by these sharks and stuff. I think you wouldn't even need to show the sharks that much, because you can convey that sense of chaos and fear, just, you know, in the people's reactions and in what's happening to them and stuff. So you wouldn't even have to go like all out on the special effects and stuff. But we have spoken a lot on the podcast about how much that shaped Quint as experience. And obviously, like, he mentions what happens to him, but the film then leaves it to us to fill in the rest of the gaps, in terms of that it left him with severe PTSD, that it has led him to drinking more, but also that we've kind of now framed Quint's mission in Jaws, in the first film, as like a revenge mission, because we know he is this shark fisherman. He goes out and he hunts sharks and he kills them, and then he puts the jaws up in his cabin. So we sort of like came up with this theory of like, maybe Quint is trying to kill as many sharks as men died on the Indianapolis. And it's like, he is trying to, you know, hunt down the sharks to get revenge and like what happened to him, because he is like plagued by this survivor's guilt. Like, he survived and so many of his friends didn't. And also just the complicated element of
what did he have to do to survive as well?
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, was there There could be an interesting story about how he had to do something horrible to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
It was between him and someone else, and maybe that's where that guilt comes from too.
So you think he's got a certain number in his head that he's trying to get to?
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, like why he would be the way that he is, and why some of his actions then in Jaws make more sense, where he is, so determined to kind of like get this shark. Obviously it's his job, it's what he wants, what he wants to do, but you see him change after he's shared his experiences on the Indianapolis. So something switches in him at that point where, and like this time it's personal, but like it seems to become more personal and not just a job for Quint after that point.
Yeah.
And I think this prequel idea, like I said, it's not giving us anything that we don't already know. I wouldn't need, like, don't add in some like stupid, like superfluous love story or, or anything that wasn't, what happened and what we have in the film. You can just expand on that. And like you said, Rich, this idea of, maybe he had to do something, that could be the surprise thing. It was, him or this other guy when the shark was approaching, and he had to like make a snap decision, and that's a guilt that he has to live with. And that's why, in Jaws, he is like protective of the other two, but also, he reaches a point in the film where he's like, I don't care what happens to me. I don't care if I, live or die effectively. Yeah. So knowing just a little bit more about like what makes that character tick, I think would be so interesting. Yeah. I fear it's possibly too late to do it now, but if I could have any,
if you can make sequel. Coming to America, then you can.
Yeah. Coming to Jaws.
Yeah, you can surely make a Jaws prequel.
How have they not done that? And they came up with the idea of Jaws of the Revenge, where a shark is seeking revenge on a family and follows it across the ocean.
Because
because that is the plot of Jaws' Revenge, right? That is.
Oh, it sure is. Yeah, voodoo. There's some voodoo in there as well. Don't forget about that.
They loved voodoo in like 1987, didn't they? There's like a lot of voodoo stuff about, wasn't there?
Loved the voodoo. Yeah, big fan. Yeah. It seems like the thing is, I'm not the first person who has had this idea. I'm sure other people have thought of this. This is not unique and exclusive idea to me that I've just come up with this prequel idea, but it's something that obviously, we discussed a lot on the podcast in terms of like, if there ever was like a reboot or a remake, which we absolutely do not want under any circumstances. No. But this is the only thing that I would want, but I would want it to be done properly. Honestly, I would want Spielberg to direct. I wouldn't want anyone else to touch it, because I think you have to have a really good understanding of this character and know this character really, really well to, I don't like fan servicey box ticking kind of prequels where it's like, what's to bring it back to Star Wars, but in like the Solo, a Star Wars story, didn't like it, but like how he gets his name, and it's just
the worst thing ever.
You're traveling by yourself, are you? And it's just like, oh, really? Like that's how he got his name? Like, come on! It's just, I don't need stuff like that. I don't,
You don't like these legacy films and legacy characters and stuff?
No, I don't.
Ghostbusters Afterlife, how do we feel about that?
Haven't seen it, but I've heard it's all right.
It's great.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you the big question, though, the one you probably don't want to answer. Who would you cast? Oh. You must have at some point dropped some names. I mean, I've got no one, so good luck.
Gonna sound a bit weird, and I don't even know if I love this casting, but it was the first person I thought of that I just think could do that kind of like dark, grittier kind of character and like plays a character well as well, is Joaquin Phoenix. But I don't know. I don't know if he has that kind of like grizzled man of the sea thing that I need for Quint, but it is a younger Quint, so
must be almost as old as Quint by now.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't quite work.
So young, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so hard because like who else is Robert Shaw? Like no one. I mean his son can do it because his son.
Oh yeah, you've seen the play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, incredible. He can do it because he looks exactly like his father.
I think a younger Daniel Craig would have been quite good. He's got this thing about him, I think. Not with the blonde hair, obviously.
No. It's interesting, isn't it? I really struggle.
It would be really hard to cast.
Yeah, impossible almost. I don't know who could do it.
The more I think about it, the more opportunities there are, though. You could almost do it where you never see a shark.
Yeah.
You know, people just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
would you have the music, or would you leave that out?
Wow.
I don't know.
Would you simp it up a little? Not simp it up. That's I don't want discos. You know what I mean? Change it slightly. It's iconic.
Yeah, it's iconic for Jaws. You know, you'd call this like Quint or something, wouldn't you? You wouldn't call it Jaws. Well, so maybe you don't need it.
Yeah, there's other themes in the score that aren't the shark theme that I think you could play around with and use. Like, one of my favorite bits in Jaws is when they use Farewell and Adieu as like part of the score. So the song that Quint sings frequently, like they use it so that it's just like the melody of it, and they use that as Quint's like theme tune almost. So I could see it working in that way, where it takes like elements of the score but not like the Jaws theme, because I think you're right. I think it's like that's the theme for Jaws. It's for that shark. I don't even like when you hear it a little bit in the sequels, because it's not the same.
Doesn't work.
No.
And also it's like it's so done now, isn't it? My son is 6, and he had a shark and was going dun. I was like, how do you know that? He's like, it's in like Pink Fong or whatever it is that he's been watching.
Baby shark.
Yeah, it's like Baby Shark. And I was like, oh no.
Oh man, I think that's a cracking idea.
Thank you.
It should happen.
Yeah, it's going on the list for when I win the Euro Millions. Then
nice.
I don't know who owns the rights to Jaws. Is it still a studio? I'm guessing Spielberg doesn't, because obviously what happened after he left it.
I think Universal.
Happen, really.
Yeah.
I think I read earlier that Free is not even Universal. It's like an independent film. I don't know how they got a hold of the rights, and that would explain what's that one. Can we quickly dive into Jaws Revenge? Because I have to know your thoughts. So we've been through the whole ride with you now. So you left it a while, and then you got to Jaws Revenge, and you thought, where can this go? Obviously very different to your dream sequel.
Very different.
What did you think of Jaws Revenge? Because like you said, you think it's better than Free.
Yeah, it sure is. I think it's just I'm going to say it's all on Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody, but it just makes such a difference. And like Brody is referenced in it as well. I think there's even like some flashbacks of him, like archive footage and stuff, and in pictures and stuff. So it's like there's still something in it that is connecting it to Jaws for me. And I think as stupid as it is, and it is very stupid.
Oh, yes.
I think it kind of knows it's stupid, whereas I don't think Jaws 3 does. I think Jaws 3 is trying to be like fun, because it has that kind of like carnival-esque style to it at times. But I don't think they set out to make it as bad as it ended up being, or as stupid as it ended up being.
Yeah.
Because this, you can just tell that they're having a bit more fun, and that there is at least something to connect it to Jaws. I honestly think that is what it boils down to, because just having a character with the surname Brody does not make it a Jaws film, because Michael and Sean Brody are in every Jaws film, but never played by the same characters. So, played by the same actors. So it's not even like, the kid was then, in the next one, and then slightly older and was in the next one. It's the same actor all the way through or something. It's like, you wouldn't know these characters were those characters unless they turn around and were like, oh, Mike, Sean, whatever. So, yeah, I like Jaws 4. It's been a minute since I've watched it. I didn't watch it today.
Do you like that Ellen Brody and the shark have like a sixth sense of each other? They made some weird choices in this film.
Yeah, there's some real choices. It's also obviously like it's called Jaws the Revenge, so it's really like going down that route of being like this shark has like a personal vendetta against the Brody family.
That's exactly what they're going for. It's,
very
it's mental.
Very, very silly. Like
it is, and I'd never seen it. David told me how ridiculous it was because he'd seen it before, and I didn't watch it until a couple of days ago. And I watched it. And I thought, I thought it was going to go kind of direction where the shark in the Bahamas, wherever they were, was all in Ellen Brody's head, and I thought it was going to be her PTSD rather than it actually being a real shark, but no, it wasn't that subtle or that clever.
Would you not like a Jaws 5 when there's a Michael Brody and he's got like the same issues and you don't see a shark and he's just got to deal with his issues of not being able to go in water, and then we turn it into like a drama comedy like Sideways or something like that?
Yeah, you've kind of accidentally touched on how I would make, if I was to make Jaws 2, what I would have done.
Oh, here we go.
Because I like Jaws 2. Obviously, it was my pick for the best sequel. I think Jaws 2 would be even better if there was no shark. So it's really like excuse me, if it's like addressing Brody's PTSD, because he's like, he sees the bites on the orca and he's like, it's a shark. And he does that thing at the beach where he's like, shooting wildly at the water and it's just like, it's a shark. And, all the rest of the people in the town are like, it's not. And but then it turns out it is. And then it just kind of like goes down the same track of, the kids are in danger and Brody has to go out on the boat and he has to save them. But like, how much more interesting would it be if there was no shark, if this was all in Brody's head? And like, that's a very, now I think a film like that would get made. Back then, not so much, because Jaws was this big, like, blockbuster thing. Like, people were talking about it. People were queuing like around the blocks to see it. It was a phenomenon. Like, it is no other word to use to describe it. So there's a reason why Jaws 2 was so successful and made so much money, because it, took that sense of thrill and fun and seeing a shark eating people and then seeing the shark blown up at the end. It took all of those elements of Jaws that people liked, didn't do it as well, didn't have as much nuance and stuff in it, and people enjoyed it. Because why wouldn't they? You're giving the people what they want. But it would have just been a much more like challenging film, I think, if it had been really getting into Brody's psyche. I'm now, honestly, I'm obsessed with this idea of like Brody turning into Quint, or like becoming like Quint, and his like drinking problem is just not really addressed that much, but it's just like it's such an interesting thing. You can draw up the parallels between those two characters.
Do you think that's because back then in the early 80s, whatever, PTSD and mental health wasn't really a thing? They're just like man up and get on with it kind of thing. It would be very different if they made it now.
Yeah.
And people talk about that kind of stuff a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just don't, I think that had you made that film and made it a really serious like drama about this guy like thinking he's seeing a shark everywhere, but actually it's just him kind of like really going through some stuff, people would have been like, oh, like this is crap, like we want the shark.
Where's the shark? Where is it?
But this is like, people saying that like Jaws is just a shark film, and I bang on about this forever, and like it's not. It's about so much more than just a shark. You can take the shark element out of it and make that any other threat, and it would still pretty much like hold up. Like everything else would work in it, because there's so much more going on beneath the surface, pun intended. But yeah, I that's my like dream Jaws 2, because obviously like Roy Scheider being in it, that's it's exactly what I want. I had my dream prequel of Quint, what I would do to fix Jaws 2, and like getting back to Jaws 4 would have been so interesting if they'd have just really leaned into Ellen a bit more as a character.
Yeah.
Because she's great as a character. Her and Brody's relationship is great, and she does get kind of like short shrift like throughout the films because she's just not, you know, one of the main characters. No. She is sort of on the side, but making her more of a big deal in Jaws 4 I think would have been so interesting, and yeah, like going down that route of
like a Sarah Connor kind of
right. I would have loved that. Like, make her this like badass like action hero. That would have been
what are you doing, Mum? She's putting grenades together, making Molotov cocktails. We're going hunting, son.
I gotta take down this shark. I think
this time it's personal.
This time it's really personal.
Yeah, maybe we'll ruin it. My eyes are ruining.
Do you know what? I quite like Michael Caine in it as well. I quite like, you know, he's
doing fun.
He's doing his dirty rotten scoundrels bit. You know, he's kind of.
I bet they had a lovely time in the Bahamas or Barbados.
I bet they had a beautiful time. Yeah.
The famous quote where a journalist asked Michael Caine if he'd seen Jaws 4, and he says, "Nope, but I've seen the house it bought."
Iconic behaviour.
Yeah.
Those were Sarah Buddery's Unequal sequels.
Loved it.
Brilliant.
A lot.
Who knew that talking about 3 Jaws movies could be so massively entertaining?
That's because they're all quite rubbish, but Jaws 2 is surprisingly good. I've given it...
I was going to say, I like Jaws 2.
Given it a wide berth for many, many years because it doesn't compare to the first one, but
yeah,
very much like Psycho 2 or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, happily surprised that it actually works, and it's a better film than I remember. And it's a shame it's compared to Jaws because, you know, Jaws is like the best film ever. But Jaws 2, solid film, solid flick.
Yeah, definitely. I actually enjoyed it. I mean, apart from the electrocuting the shark at the end, I thought it was very good.
Yeah, there are some ridiculous bits, but it's a solid film. It's amazing it got made at all after you read about the making of and how many problems they had with Roy and the director not liking each other and stuff like that. If you should read about it, it's a great read if anyone's out there not read about Jaws 2. I think it's more chaos than the first Jaws.
Well, yeah, that's true, and that was quite historically chaotic, wasn't it?
That was a mess, yeah.
And then Jaws 3, what an absolute mess!
Wow, that is worse than I remember.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that can get in the bin.
It's not really a Jaws film, is it? It's not connected. Well, apart from the kids are still there, but I don't know.
Well, they're only by name. Like, they're not really connected. It's not on Amity Island.
No,
that's the main thing, isn't it? You know, there's no Amity on it, and
it's got no legacy characters in it.
No, drops it for me.
But hilarious.
I actually prefer Jaws 4 to Jaws 3.
I don't. I still think Jaws 3 is better than the
no way.
Jaws 4 with what's her face having a connection with the mother of the other sharks or something.
Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous. I'm not going to lie. Like, that's a ridiculous concept. But in terms of a film, a watchable thing that I could watch and go, okay, that's a thing. Like 4 is better than 3.
Wow.
And we came up with some interesting ideas for reworking 4 into a more interesting movie.
We got a prequel and a sequel, which I love.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, love that. Yeah, I would happily watch both of them, I think.
Well, yeah. I love how we have no rules in this podcast. And we're like, she came up with a prequel, like, okay, let's just roll with that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Bend the rules.
Yeah.
It's fine. Go for it.
And Sarah is all knowledgeable about Jaws, and her passion for that shark series is incredible.
It is, yeah, definitely. And if you like what you heard with Sarah talking about Jaws today, go back and listen to the Jaws for a Minute podcast. It is that Let's Jaws for a Minute, sorry, I should say. Go back and listen to that. It's a really, really good podcast. It sounds like you wouldn't have enough to talk about from just a minute of a movie, but it turns out there's loads.
Yeah. And they're just about to come to the end of it, and I think they've got plans to carry on with Jaws 2 and 3, maybe not minute each, because that would be mental. But yeah, if you're a Jaws fan, then it is literally the go-to Jaws podcast to listen to.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Even if you're just a movie fan, you have to be specifically a Jaws fan. You know, if you just like movies, then that's a really good podcast to listen to.
It's really fun to listen. And I love listening to Sarah. She did when we were on JumpCast, she did a series of all the animated Disney films from
Snow White to the present day, and they're brilliant listeners as well. So if anyone can go back and check them out as well, they're great.
Fantastic. And on that note, talking about movie podcasts, what about this one? If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, if you're a big fan of Sarah's and a big fan of Let's Jaws for a Minute, and you like what you've heard, then go back and listen to all our other episodes. We're in series 3 there. You've got 2 more series you've not even touched yet. Go back and listen to them. And if you do like us and you want us to drop into your inbox twice a week, then click on the subscribe button, because we have these interview episodes and we have our Friday extra episodes where me and Dave just talk nonsense about loosely sequel-based movies. Or, you know, if you give us a little subscribe, give us a like, give us a 5 stars. You could give us a review if you want to. We'd love that. We do like a review, especially if it's a good one. And you can also follow us on social media. We are at Unequal Sequel on Twitter and Instagram. And I don't know why you'd want to do this, but you might want to. You can send us an email, unequalsequel@hotmail.com.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm just going to say thank you for all the listeners that have listened and downloaded the past few weeks of Series 3. It's much appreciated. This series is golden. Like, the first 3 episodes are so good.
Oh god, and we've recorded the next 3 as well, so we also know that how good they are. Like,
we're nearly done,
yeah,
which is also sad and exciting at the same time. It's a weird ride. So thank you for everyone listening. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the people down the shops. We're great, and thank you. I've got nothing else to say, so it's a bye from me and a bye from him.
Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.